Millions of Americans are facing a major crisis right now, as look at this. Americans brace for food stamps to run out, the greatest hunger catastrophe since the Great Depression. This situation is being described as one of the most alarming hunger threats since the 1930s. The federal government shutdown has placed millions of families who rely on food stamp benefits in a desperate position, and the problem is only getting worse. According to new reports, look at this. Trump administration won't use contingency fund to pay November food stamp benefits. That decision means tens of millions could soon lose access to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which provides essential monthly benefits to help low-income Americans buy groceries. Government officials have confirmed that. Look at this. Nearly 42 million people in danger as federal government shutdown continues and SNAP funding to end November 1st. Without new funding, states are running out of money to distribute food stamp benefits to residents in need. Officials from multiple states have warned that their budgets are already stretched to the limit, and unless Congress acts immediately, SNAP funds will stop flowing next month. To understand what this really means for families, consider this. Look at this. 2 decades ago, Sara Carlson, then a mother of 3, was newly single because of a traumatic event, and the U.S.'s food stamp program, now called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, helped her feed her children with free food supplies. Back then, the program was a lifeline for struggling parents. It provided immediate access to basic food for those who couldn't afford to feed their children. Sarah's story is one of millions that highlight the impact of the food stamp program. Look at this. "I wouldn't have been able to afford to live," said Carlson, 45, who lives in Rochester, Minnesota, and now works as an operations manager for a wealth management firm and serves on the board of Channel One Regional Food Bank, which works to increase food access. Her experience shows how crucial this program is, not just as short-term aid, but as a foundation that helps people rebuild their lives after hardship. But what's truly troubling is that her story also exposes the flaws and instability in the system itself. Look at this. While the food stamps helped her, the government cut her off after a couple years because she started making too much money, which meant she again had to worry about having enough food. This is a problem many Americans face. Once their income slightly increases, they often lose eligibility for benefits, even though their new income isn't enough to meet their rising expenses. The result is a cycle of financial stress and food insecurity. Now, with the current shutdown, millions of people could face an even worse situation, not because of income changes, but because the entire SNAP program may temporarily run out of funds. The crisis deepens as, look at this. Trump administration won't use contingency fund to pay November food stamp benefits. This means that the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which manages SNAP, will not rely on its emergency reserves to maintain the program during the shutdown. According to official reports, look at this. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says it will not tap into its $6 billion contingency fund to cover food stamp benefits next month if the shutdown continues, according to an agency memo obtained by CNN. That means that roughly 42 million Americans will not receive critical food assistance from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, in November, unless the agency shifts its position. Look at this. The memo outlines strict legal limits on how the contingency funds can be used, saying, SNAP contingency funds are only available to supplement regular monthly benefits when amounts have been appropriated for, but are insufficient to cover, benefits, the memo says. The contingency fund is not available to support FY 2026 regular benefits because the appropriation for regular benefits no longer exists. This clarification confirms that without an approved budget from Congress, even the emergency fund cannot be used to continue payments. Essentially, millions of Americans are being caught in the middle of a political standoff between lawmakers, with their next meal hanging in the balance. Food insecurity experts are warning that this could lead to one of the largest hunger crises in modern U.S. history. Charities and local food banks are already bracing for an overwhelming surge in demand. The number of families seeking help has already risen sharply in several states. One food bank director described the current situation as a ticking time bomb. If the government doesn't act before the start of November, the loss of SNAP benefits could push millions below the poverty line overnight. It's not just individuals who rely on food stamps who will feel the impact. Local economies, especially grocery stores in low-income areas, will also take a hit. SNAP benefits circulate directly into communities, supporting small businesses and local farmers. The sudden halt of $6 billion in benefits would mean billions less in consumer spending, affecting everyone from grocery clerks to suppliers. This crisis exposes how political gridlock can have devastating human consequences. Analysts point out that the failure to use the contingency fund reflects a deeper issue: the lack of bipartisan cooperation on essential programs that directly affect the most vulnerable citizens. While some lawmakers are blaming the shutdown on partisan politics, others argue that the contingency fund was never designed to replace a full month of benefits nationwide. The $6 billion amount may sound large, but in reality, it covers only a fraction of the SNAP program's monthly needs. At the same time, the new work requirements for SNAP are adding further confusion and pressure. Millions of recipients under the age of 64 are now required to work at least 80 hours per month to qualify for food assistance. The idea was to promote self-sufficiency, but the results have been mixed. For many, working even part-time pushes their income slightly above the eligibility threshold, resulting in reduced or terminated benefits. Yet without those benefits, their limited income isn't enough to cover rent, utilities, and groceries. This work trap creates an impossible situation for low-income workers. Experts say this issue is particularly serious for individuals with inconsistent work schedules, seasonal employment, or health limitations. Many are struggling to meet the 80-hour requirement even when they are trying to work. Economic researchers have also pointed out that the new rules could remove hundreds of thousands of people from SNAP rolls, even if they still face food insecurity. That means more families depending on food banks and charity groups that are already stretched thin. Meanwhile, inflation continues to worsen the situation. Food prices have increased dramatically in the last 2 years, outpacing the cost of living adjustments given to SNAP recipients. According to recent estimates, grocery prices have climbed by over 20% since 2021, while the most recent cost of living increase for SNAP is only about 2.8%. That small increase doesn't come close to covering the real cost of living. Families that used to stretch their benefits for a month are now running out of funds in 2 weeks or less. Without government action, experts warn that November could mark the beginning of a hunger crisis not seen in decades. The potential for the greatest hunger catastrophe since the Great Depression is no longer just a headline. It's becoming a reality for millions of Americans. Community leaders and advocacy groups are urging Congress and the administration to reach an immediate funding agreement to protect SNAP and other vital programs like Social Security and disability benefits, which are also at risk. Every day of delay increases the likelihood that families will go without food, children will miss meals, and food banks will face shortages. The situation is dire, but solvable, if political leaders prioritize people over party. The question now is whether Washington will act in time. Because for 42 million Americans, the clock is ticking.